Have you ever felt like you're simply going through the motions, following rules that you never agreed to? I used to feel that way too, constantly worried about fitting in, pleasing others, and playing by the unwritten social rules. It was exhausting. But one day, I realized something shocking. The social habits we're taught to follow are often designed to keep us stuck, not to help us thrive. They encourage us to live in a way that feels more like survival than true living. If you're tired of being trapped in this cycle, it might be time to break free. It won't be easy, and it definitely won't be popular, but trust me, it will set you free. Living life on your own terms means letting go of toxic social habits that drain your energy and limit your growth. It's about creating space for what really matters and stepping away from the pressure of constantly trying to meet other people's expectations. So, if you're ready for a change, let's dive in and take a closer look at these habits and how quietly eliminating them can lead to a more fulfilling life. Habit 1. People-pleasing. Let's talk about people-pleasing. This is one of those habits that we're often taught from a young age, and we mistake it for kindness. We're told to be polite, to make others happy, to always be agreeable. What's the harm in that, right? But here's the truth, people-pleasing isn't kindness, it's self-sabotage disguised as politeness. I used to be the poster child for it. I would say yes to every request, smile through every inconvenience, and twist myself into knots just to keep others happy, all while secretly resenting it. I thought I was being generous, but in reality, I was just putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own, at my own expense. The turning point came when I realized that constantly catering to others wasn't just exhausting, it was unsustainable. I was running myself into the ground, and the worst part? The people I was bending over backward for often didn't even appreciate it. I was saying yes to every favor, but the more I tried to please others, the less respect I received in return. It was as though, by always saying yes, I was signaling to the world that my time, energy, and even my self-worth were available for the taking. I learned that people-pleasing is, in fact, selfish, not selfless. You might be thinking, how is trying to make everyone happy selfish? The truth is, when you're constantly focused on making others happy, you're doing it to avoid discomfort, rejection, or confrontation, not because you genuinely care about them. It's about protecting yourself from feeling bad, not about truly helping others. The more I reflected on this, the more I realized that my actions weren't coming from a place of selflessness. They were driven by fear of judgment and the desire to avoid uncomfortable feelings. And here's the most eye-opening part, people-pleasing leads to resentment. Over time, I found myself feeling bitter and taken for granted. I would go out of my way to do things for others, only to feel like my efforts were either ignored or unappreciated. But when I started to say no without excuses, without explaining myself to death, something surprising happened. The world didn't end. In fact, the people who truly cared about me respected my boundaries and admired my newfound confidence. Sure, a few were shocked, maybe even a little offended, but those reactions revealed who was really in my corner. Now, when I look back, I see that my people-pleasing was not a way to help anyone, it was a way of protecting myself from uncomfortable feelings like rejection or conflict. But here's the kicker. When you constantly try to please everyone, you end up diminishing your own worth. You're not showing your true self, you're hiding behind a mask of niceness to avoid conflict and gain approval. This realization was a game changer for me. I stopped pretending that my worth was measured by how much I could do for others. I stopped seeing every no as an act of rejection, and I stopped seeing every yes as an act of goodwill. Instead, I began to realize that my boundaries are a form of self-respect, and respecting them is essential for maintaining my mental and emotional well-being. So, here's the challenge. If you're still trapped in the cycle of people-pleasing, it's time to break free. It's going to be uncomfortable at first. No one likes to feel like the bad guy when they say no, especially in a society that often values agreeableness over authenticity. But trust me, When you stop overcommitting to others and start focusing on what's truly important to you, life gets lighter. You stop carrying everyone else's expectations, and you begin to create space for your own needs, dreams, and goals. Remember, people-pleasing isn't kindness, it's a form of self-sabotage. It's time to stop being a doormat and start being your own best friend. When you start to say no to the things that drain you and yes to what nourishes you, you'll find that the right people will stick around, and the ones who don't, well, they'll quietly fade away. And when that happens, you'll feel a weight lifted off your shoulders, and you'll realize that living on your own terms is far more fulfilling than constantly trying to meet everyone else's expectations. Habit 2. Holding grudges. Let's dive into another habit that can weigh you down, holding grudges. It's something most of us have been guilty of at some point in our lives. Holding on to anger and resentment may feel like a way to hold someone accountable for their wrongdoings, but the truth is, it's like clutching a burning coal, hoping the other person will feel the heat. In reality, it's only hurting you. I used to be an expert at holding grudges, replaying every hurtful word and betrayal in my mind, convincing myself that my anger was justified. I thought that by holding on to that resentment, I was maintaining control, protecting myself from getting hurt again. But here's the thing, holding a grudge doesn't protect you. It keeps you stuck. It ties you to the past, trapping you in a cycle of bitterness that only poisons your heart. There was a time when someone I trusted deeply betrayed me, and I held on to that anger for years. I would replay the situation in my mind over and over, imagining what I should have said, what I could have done differently. I thought that by holding on to my resentment, I was somehow keeping myself safe, but the truth was, I was just sinking deeper into pain. Grudges don't keep you safe, they keep you stuck. They keep you anchored to that hurt, preventing you from moving forward and healing. And while you're holding on to that grudge, you're not only poisoning your own heart, you're also giving away your power. You're letting the person who wronged you continue to have control over your emotions. You're letting them dictate your peace. Here's the deep truth, holding on to a grudge is like anchoring yourself in a stormy sea. You think it's keeping you steady, but in reality, it's pulling you under. The longer you hold on, the deeper you sink. The only way to save yourself is to let go. But letting go isn't about forgetting what happened or condoning the behavior. It's about choosing peace over pain. It's about reclaiming your power and refusing to let past hurts define your future. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it changes your future. When I finally let go of that grudge, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I realized that holding on to anger and resentment was only holding me back from experiencing true freedom. I wasn't letting the person who hurt me off the hook, I was freeing myself from the grip of bitterness that had been controlling me. The deeper message here is that life is too short to live in chains, especially the chains we create ourselves. Grudges are like invisible shackles that prevent us from growing, healing, and moving forward. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks those chains. It's an act of courage, self-love, and wisdom. When you forgive, you're not doing it for the other person, you're doing it for yourself. You're choosing to let go of the past so that you can live fully in the present and create a future that's not burdened by old wounds. So, if you're holding on to a grudge right now, ask yourself, is this really how you want to spend your energy? Is this how you want to define your life? Let go of the hurt, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Release that burden, and watch how your life opens up when you no longer let past wounds dictate your present and future. Habit 3. Ignoring red flags in relationships. Let's talk about something many of us have experienced at some point, ignoring red flags in a relationship. We've all been there, stuck in a relationship where things just don't feel right, but we convince ourselves that if we just give it time, things will get better. Maybe it's because we're afraid of being alone, or we're holding out hope that the person will change. But here's the uncomfortable truth: ignoring red flags in a relationship is like driving with your eyes closed. You're bound to crash, and the longer you ignore the signs, the worse the wreck will be. I've been guilty of this myself. I once stayed in a relationship that I knew was toxic from the start. There were constant arguments, disrespectful comments, and a lack of trust. But instead of confronting the issues or walking away, I kept making excuses. I told myself it was just a rough patch, or that everyone has their flaws, and maybe I was overreacting. I wanted so badly for it to work out that I ignored the glaring signs that it wasn't. But here's the reality: red flags are there for a reason. They are warning signs that something is fundamentally wrong, whether it's a lack of respect, constant dishonesty, or behaviors that make you feel uncomfortable. These signs shouldn't be ignored or brushed off as minor issues that will fix themselves over time. When you ignore red flags, you're not just dismissing a problem, you're compromising your own well-being in exchange for the hope that things will improve. The hard truth is that ignoring red flags is not about being too forgiving or too optimistic. It's about self-betrayal. When you overlook those warning signs, you're telling yourself that your needs, your feelings, and your intuition don't matter. You're prioritizing someone else's comfort or approval over your own happiness and peace of mind. And that's a dangerous game to play. I learned this lesson the hard way. The longer I ignored the red flags in that relationship, the bigger the issues became. What could have been a minor disagreement turned into a major crisis. Eventually, the relationship imploded, and I was left wondering why I didn't walk away sooner, before things got so bad. The red flags had been there all along, but I chose to close my eyes to them. So here's the deeper message: ignoring red flags isn't just about avoiding uncomfortable truths, it's about denying yourself the respect and love you deserve. You deserve to be in a relationship where you feel safe, valued, and heard, not one where you're constantly on edge, hoping things will change. If you start noticing red flags, listen to them. They are your intuition's way of protecting you, guiding you towards something better. Walking away from a relationship that shows red flags isn't easy, especially if you're emotionally invested. But it's a necessary step towards self-preservation and growth. It's about choosing yourself over the fear of being alone or the hope that things will improve. It's about recognizing that you deserve more than to settle for a relationship that doesn't honor who you are. If you find yourself in a relationship where red flags are waving, don't ignore them. Don't make excuses or convince yourself that you can fix things on your own. Trust your gut, prioritize your well-being, and have the courage to walk away if necessary. Because in the end, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself. And you deserve to be in a relationship that reflects that, a relationship where you're truly seen, respected, and loved. Habit 4. Staying silent on important issues. Let's talk about something that many of us have been guilty of: staying silent on important issues. It's often seen as the easier route, keeping the peace, avoiding conflict, and maintaining the status quo. But here's the hard truth: silence in the face of injustice, wrongdoing, or moral dilemmas isn't neutrality, it's complicity. Staying silent isn't a passive choice, it's an active decision to let wrongs go unchallenged, to stand by while something isn't right. I used to believe that keeping quiet was the right thing to do, especially when the stakes were high or the issues were divisive. I told myself that it wasn't my place to speak up, that my voice wouldn't make a difference, that someone else would take charge. There was a time in my life when I witnessed a colleague being mistreated at work. They were constantly undermined, disrespected, and their contributions ignored. I saw it happening every day, but instead of stepping in, I kept my head down. I didn't want to stir the pot, risk my own position, or be seen as the troublemaker. I stayed silent, thinking it wasn't my fight. But that silence weighed on me. It became a constant reminder that I had chosen comfort over courage. Here's the controversial part: staying silent on important issues is not just about avoiding conflict, it's about allowing harm to continue. When you stay silent, you're giving your tacit approval to the very things you know are wrong. You're allowing injustice to persist because you're too afraid, too complacent, or too apathetic to speak out. Over time, I realized that silence isn't a shield, it's a prison. It locks you into a space where you're constantly compromising your values, swallowing your voice, and watching as things you care about fall apart. The cost of staying silent is high. It erodes your self-respect, damages your relationships, and allows harm to continue unchecked. I learned the hard way that my silence didn't protect me, it diminished me. I regretted not standing up sooner, not speaking out when I should have, and I was haunted by the consequences long after the incident passed. The deeper message here is that speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable, is a moral obligation. It's about being true to yourself and the principles you hold dear. It's about recognizing that your voice matters. Even if it feels small or insignificant, it can make a difference. Silence might protect you from immediate conflict, but it also robs you of the chance to make a change, to stand up for what's right, and to live in alignment with your values. It's important to understand that speaking up doesn't mean being confrontational or disrespectful. It's about being honest, direct, and courageous in the face of wrongdoing. It's about having the strength to say, "This isn't right," even when it's easier to stay quiet. Yes, there may be risks, backlash, criticism, or even personal loss, but those risks pale in comparison to the damage done by staying silent. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is that silence is rarely golden, especially when it comes to important issues. Your voice is a tool for good. It can challenge injustice, inspire change, and defend the vulnerable. When you stay silent, you're choosing to let that power go to waste. But when you speak up, you're not just advocating for others, you're reclaiming your own integrity and reinforcing your values. So, the next time you're tempted to stay silent on an important issue, remember this: your voice matters. It can make a difference, even if it's just in one person's life. Don't let fear or complacency hold you back from speaking out. The world needs more voices of courage, more people willing to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Because in the end, staying silent on important issues doesn't protect you, it diminishes you. And the cost of that silence is far too high to pay. Habit 5. Seeking constant entertainment. In today's world, it feels almost impossible to escape the constant barrage of entertainment. We live in a time where entertainment is just a click away, whether it's social media, streaming platforms, video games, or the endless scroll of content that never seems to stop. It's easy to fall into the trap of seeking entertainment at every free moment, but here's the uncomfortable truth: constantly seeking entertainment is a subtle form of escapism, and it's slowly eroding our ability to face reality, think deeply, and live meaningful lives. I'll admit, I've been there. There was a time when every spare moment was filled with distractions. I would scroll through my phone, binge-watch the latest series, or dive into the next viral trend, all while telling myself that I was just relaxing or unwinding. But after a while, I realized something important. I wasn't just passing the time, I was avoiding it. I was avoiding my thoughts, my emotions, and even my responsibilities. Every moment of entertainment was an attempt to fill a void, but instead of solving anything, it just made me feel emptier. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Seeking constant entertainment is not just about enjoying life, it's about avoiding life. We use entertainment to numb ourselves to the discomfort of being alone with our thoughts. We distract ourselves from our challenges, our goals, and sometimes even our emotions. But in doing so, we miss out on something incredibly valuable: the opportunity to truly know ourselves, to confront our fears, and to grow beyond our immediate distractions. Think about it. When was the last time you sat in silence without reaching for your phone or turning on the TV? When was the last time you allowed yourself to be bored, to simply sit with your thoughts and see where they took you. For many of us, the idea of being alone with our thoughts is terrifying, so we drown them out with noise. But in doing so, we miss out on the richness that comes from introspection, creativity, and real-life experiences. I learned this lesson the hard way. After realizing that I was using entertainment as a way to avoid my feelings, I decided to take a break. I went on a digital detox, no social media, no TV, no streaming. At first, it was incredibly difficult. I felt restless, bored, and anxious. But as the days went on, something surprising happened. I started to reconnect with myself. I found time to think deeply about my goals, my relationships, and my purpose. I started reading books that had been on my shelf for months, journaling my thoughts, and enjoying the quiet moments. I began to realize that life didn't need to be filled with constant noise to be fulfilling. The deeper message here is that constant entertainment isn't just a harmless habit, it's a barrier to personal growth, self-discovery, and meaningful living. When we fill every moment with distractions, we're avoiding the very things that could lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. We're missing out on the opportunity to grow, to reflect, and to truly experience life. It's not about rejecting entertainment altogether, it's about finding balance. Enjoy entertainment in moderation, but don't let it become a crutch that keeps you from facing the real world. If you find yourself constantly seeking entertainment, challenge yourself to take a break. Spend some time in silence, engage in meaningful conversations, pursue hobbies that don't involve screens, or simply sit and think. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's in those moments of discomfort that real growth happens. You'll find that life is much richer when you're not constantly running from it, and that true happiness comes not from distractions, but from a life lived with intention and purpose. So, let go of the need for constant entertainment. Embrace the silence, the stillness, and the opportunity to truly experience your life. You might be surprised by what you discover when you stop filling every moment with noise. Habit 6. Oversharing personal details. In an age where social media encourages us to share every aspect of our lives with the world, it's easy to fall into the trap of oversharing personal details. Whether it's posting about our bad days, airing relationship drama, or revealing our most private thoughts, we often feel compelled to open up in order to connect or be understood. But here's the uncomfortable reality: oversharing doesn't bring us closer to others, it often pushes them away, and it can leave us vulnerable in ways we never anticipated. I used to be guilty of this myself. When I first got into social media, I believed that sharing my life openly would make me more relatable, more authentic. I thought that by revealing my struggles, my frustrations, and even the ups and downs of my relationships, I was building connections and showing people the real me. I posted about my challenges at work, my personal battles, and my emotional roller coasters. At first, it felt liberating. It was like I was being honest and open, and I was getting validation and attention in return. But as time went on, I started to notice something troubling. Instead of feeling more connected to others, I started feeling exposed, even judged. People I barely knew were offering unsolicited advice or, worse, using my vulnerabilities against me. The more I shared, the more I felt like I was giving away pieces of myself to people who hadn't earned that level of trust or intimacy. And the worst part? The people who actually cared about me were often left in the background, while strangers or acquaintances were in the forefront, offering opinions I didn't need or ask for. Here's the controversial part: oversharing personal details isn't about being authentic, it's about seeking validation and attention. We often think we're being brave or open, but in reality, we're looking for sympathy or reassurance from others. Instead of dealing with our emotions privately and in a healthy way, we rush to put everything out there, hoping for instant feedback. But what we're really doing is giving away pieces of our emotional well-being, often to people who don't have our best interests at heart. Additionally, oversharing can have a lasting effect on how others perceive us. While we might think that being open makes us more likable or relatable, it can actually make others uncomfortable. It can lead them to question our judgment, our boundaries, or even our stability. People may start to view us as unstable or seeking attention, and that can strain relationships or prevent us from forming new ones. In the worst cases, it can attract the wrong kind of attention from people who might exploit our vulnerabilities rather than support us. The deeper issue with oversharing is what it does to our sense of self. When we habitually share our personal details with others, especially in public forums, we're outsourcing our emotional processing. We're not taking the time to reflect on our experiences, understand our feelings, or decide what's truly worth sharing. Instead, we rush to get external validation, diminishing the value of our experiences in the process. Here's the key takeaway: privacy is a form of power. By oversharing, we give away that power, and in doing so, we lose control over our own narrative. Not every thought, feeling, or experience needs to be shared with the world. Some things are best kept private or shared only with those who have earned our trust and respect. By holding back and being more selective about what we share, and with whom, we preserve our dignity, protect our vulnerabilities, and maintain a stronger sense of self. Authentic connection doesn't come from oversharing. It comes from being intentional about what we share and with whom. It's about creating relationships built on mutual respect, trust, and genuine understanding, not on the fleeting satisfaction of getting attention or validation. So if you find yourself in the habit of oversharing, take a step back and ask yourself why you feel the need to do so. Are you seeking validation, filling an emotional void, or hoping for connection? Once you understand the deeper reasons behind your need to overshare, you can start to address them in healthier, more private ways. Remember, not everything in your life needs to be on display. By setting boundaries around what you share and who you share it with, you're not closing yourself off from others, you're creating a more authentic, respectful, and fulfilling way of connecting. Conclusion: breaking free from toxic social habits isn't easy, but it's worth it. These habits, people-pleasing, holding grudges, ignoring red flags in relationships, staying silent in important moments, seeking constant entertainment, and oversharing, are subtle chains that hold us back from living our best lives. The key to personal growth and freedom lies in quietly eliminating these behaviors, not for anyone else, but for ourselves. When we stop trying to please everyone, we give ourselves the space to prioritize our own needs. When we let go of grudges, we reclaim our peace and emotional well-being. By confronting red flags in relationships and speaking up when it matters, we choose respect over fear. Taking a break from constant entertainment helps us rediscover what truly matters, and by setting boundaries around personal details, we protect our emotional health and build more meaningful connections. True growth happens in the quiet moments, when we align our actions with our values, free from the pressure of others' expectations. It's about living a life that is simpler, more meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. So, take the first step today, let go of what no longer serves you and embrace the freedom that comes with living life on your own terms.